Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Chris. Welcome to the Inside the U ACC Tournament preview show. There'll be a ton of interviews here, including complete breakdowns with other reporters, as well as hearing from the Hurricanes, so definitely stay tuned. So I'd like to welcome in my first guest to the show. It's Patrick McColl, covers Miami for the Miami Hurricane and WVUM. What's going on, Patrick?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the chat. Just first off, the format of the ACC tournament, and it's a big deal for Miami because as the top seed, basically if all teams go 1-1, they win the tiebreaker and move on. So they're going to wait and see how NC State and Wake Forest do in the tournament. And basically Miami has to beat whoever they do and they advance. So that's just kind of the basic format. If you're new to the format, people watching this, Patrick, I'm curious of the way you think Miami is going into this, going into the tournament. You know, they get the big series win there at the end, just kind of maybe momentum or your thoughts on how they're playing right now.
Well, I do think the offense played a little bit better on Sunday, and the pitching staff, also was a little bit better throughout the weekend. I do think there are certainly some concerns to be had. I know, the offense just coming into that final stretch, there was about 5 games in a row that they didn't score their season average in offense. And then even in a game versus Notre Dame, they got shut out for the first time. That was on Friday night, I believe. And then Thursday, they had Gabby Gutierrez hit 5 RBIs, 2 home runs, which is something way outside of what he's done all season long. And so what that means is that Hurricanes really didn't move the line and get, a lot of productive hitters in that until that final game on Sunday. So they're kind of hoping they carry that momentum into the last game and now into the ACC, series coming up in the tournament. But I also think the pitching staff has been somewhat solid. There's obviously a lot of that going on. I do think the concern for the Hurricanes is at the back end of the rotation and to see how that holds up.
Yeah, let's stick with pitching because to me, this will be like this in the regional play, super, whatever it might be, postseason play. Setting your rotation is very interesting to me, and we will get into some comments from Coach in a little bit. But just the way it stands, who should Miami throw in that first game against NC State? They play Wednesday at 7 p.m. on RSN, and then they'll play Wake Forest on Friday at 3 p.m. RSN. Again, NC State and Wake Forest play beforehand, so Miami will know which game is essentially more important. I'm curious what you're thinking at this moment. Who should Miami throw? How do you in these first 2 games? How do you see this kind of playing out? What are your thoughts initially?
Well, I do think I think with the way the Hurricanes are playing and the way they've struggled sometimes, they lost a game against Florida Gulf Coast. I'd assume you'd want to, throw your best guy when available. So I guess go with Palmquist on Wednesday against NC State, and then with Wake Forest coming out, throw Ligon, and I think that's the way they got to go. But ultimately, it will be tough because if you throw those 2 guys, then you're sitting there at the back end of the rotation. As we mentioned, Alejandro Rosario has been the Sunday guy, and he's been sort of having a rocky up and down season. Had a pretty average start last time out, but where he went 4 2/3, gave up 5 runs. But it's going to be tough for him, if he comes in at a big spot against, say, they get to the championship game and get Virginia Tech or something like that. It will be very tough for the Hurricanes to turn around that rotation. I do think that could be the Achilles heel in this tournament, that the Hurricanes don't have a solid go-to guy on the Sunday spot. I mean, even Rosario stepped in the way he got sort of rocked a little bit against Towson in his first start, and then McFarland came in at the Sunday position. He was there for a couple of starts before rolling back into the bullpen. So the Hurricanes haven't had that solid guy on the back end. That'll be interesting to watch. I do think that their offense is rolling, and they have Palmquist and Ligon, that those guys should do fine in the first 2 games and have a really good chance to get advanced past them. But there is certainly a question on the back end.
I find it very interesting. Once again, there's a lot of different scenarios you can go with the pitching, how to set it. And Gino DiMari didn't want to say, who exactly. He didn't want to announce what they're going to do. But here's Coach. We'll get some comments, but here's Coach talking about the pitching situation.
We have an idea. I'm not announcing it yet, but we do have an idea who we're going to go with. And just put it this way, that game is very important to us.
Coach, you just mentioned tomorrow, or your first game is going to be important regardless.
Yep.
Can you speak more on that and why that is so important for you, again, regardless of results?
Well, we're trying to continue to stay up in the rankings. We want to, it just, bottom line is trying to continue to play good baseball and keep that opportunity to possibly host a national. See, I think the regional is kind of a foregone conclusion, but the national one would be nice to be able to host that. I also told them, look, we can go on the road and win too. We've done that before in the past, and then it's not the end all. but you got to really focus on just playing good baseball, and everything takes care of itself. So some of the things that we have maybe struggled at times, those are the things we're working on.
Okay, so for me, the pitching situation in terms of what the options are, I think, like you said, you either go Palmquist on Wednesday, regardless of, if NC State essentially loses that game, you don't have to beat NC State. But one of the things that Coach mentioned was, and I felt like he kind of hinted at it. He said, "Look, he said he didn't want to hint, but it's a very important game for us." And to me, if you're looking at a very important game, I think Miami's taking a look at big picture past the ACC tournament as well. I think maybe that they are going to throw Palmquist, who will be on 5 days rest on Wednesday. The only other option to me is to go Jake Garland, who will be on 7 days rest. I don't think Ligon, I don't think that they would throw him on 4 days rest, and certainly Rosario just pitched on Sunday, so I don't find he's not an option. So I think it's either Garland or Palmquist in that first game. But, and I understand if you're trying to win the tournament, maybe you hold off Palmquist if Wake Forest wins. That's what we're thinking. If Wake Forest wins, they did sweep NC State to end the year. They just did that. So maybe you're thinking Wake Forest is going to win. Maybe you save Palmquist to that Friday. To me, that essentially takes them out if you do advance to the semis and championship game. But if you throw them on Wednesday, maybe you're thinking if you advance to the championship game on Sunday, maybe he could give you a couple innings. I think maybe they're thinking that, but it just feels like that the way Coach is talking about it, the way he called it an important game, it just makes me think that I wonder if they're just going to throw Carson in that opener.
Yeah, I do think that would be the basic way to go. It did seem like the Hurricanes, I guess the strategy, if they didn't throw Palmquist, would be to try and make up for the way they sort of stumbled down the stretch in the season and win this ACC tournament to get as much hopes for a national seeding as they can. I also think that, as you mentioned, he did emphasize, he was asked how important is the game against NC State and all that. And he was like, oh, it's a very important game. And then re-emphasize that later when not being asked, really. So I do think that may just hint to us that he's going to go with Palmquist. I do think it's probably a smart decision not to say anything, as you can just, sort of ride the opponent and not let them know anything until, say, game day or a day before. So they have to change their game plans. That they don't know who's going to be pitching. But I do think that's the strategy behind it. Is if they do go with Palmquist, that wouldn't be something I don't think entirely controversial, just because the way the team's been playing down the stretch, it's not, nothing is a guaranteed win, obviously. So in fact, they lost a couple of their last 3 midweek games, and the way they looked a little flat in that. And again, the offense wasn't there. So for that being said, I do think Palmquist would make a lot of sense in the option, be probably the least controversial, just how the game's being played. And that would be the way to go, in my opinion.
So Palmquist had a great year, all ACC first team selection. He's been particularly strong these last 5 starts, 3-1, 0.92 ERA, 35 strikeouts, 5 walks in 29 innings. Here's Palmquist talking about how he's been pitching down the stretch.
This last month has been awesome. I've been enjoying it like a lot more, just going deeper into games, keeping my pitch count low, and I'm not speechless. It's awesome. Just staying ready at all times. I'm not sure when I'm going to pitch yet, but just staying ready whenever my name's called. Just go out there and do my best and get us a win.
Do you have scouting reports on both teams, or how does this kind of play out for you? Because
yeah,
you've not seen them this year.
We know both teams. I pitched against both teams last year and last season, and we all know that they're good baseball players. But if we have our game plan down, then we will have our scouting report, and we'll be fine. Patrick,
you mentioned Alejandro Rosario, and I feel like he's a hot topic amongst Miami fans. And really all year, it's been one of these hot topic situations. What do you make of Rosario? And essentially, look, whatever the order might be, however you slice it, Miami's got to play 4 games in this tournament. Miami has 4 starting pitchers. I don't see them changing. I think they'll go with those 4 guys, and I think Rosario would be one of those 4 guys at some point. Point is, Patrick, what do you make of Alejandro? Do you think he's got something, to finish strong with? Certainly he pitched well last postseason, and coach has certainly been very confident in him, even if the results haven't been there.
Yeah, you speak of confidence. I asked him, coach, not too long ago, what he thought about Rosario's performance, thought he pitched okay, and that he has all the confidence in the world in him, and certainly willing to go out on the sword for Rosario if, he continues to pitch sort of rocky in these starts. And I do think he's going to be thrown into those big spots, and the Hurricanes will have to pick up their bats if he struggles again. And I also think it's just interesting that Rosario it was a 2021 perfect game all freshman, came off that big year, was expected to be the Friday night starter, and then came into a very big spot just immediately. It was sort of a rocky season, but I do think that the talent is there for Rosario. And I do think that could get problematic with the fan base if Rosario struggles, say in the ACC tournament or even in postseason play. And you can kind of micromanage every decision. I do think Gino's done a pretty solid job of, getting this team to where they are. They're a young team. This is already, I do think, a bigger spot than a lot of people expected them to be in. But if Rosario goes out and struggles, that might not go over too well with the fan base. Knowing you had Alex McFarland, in the bullpen, maybe you could have thrown him out for another start. He was a guy that did struggle a little bit against Clemson in his last start, but again, just hadn't got a ton of experience. And then the problem could be if fans, may be upset that, well, Rosario is obviously a guy that they have a lot of belief in, but you kept throwing him out there start after start when he struggled. And so there's been times where he shows that those flashes and works his slider really well and hits his spots. But I do think he'll have to step up in a big way this postseason in order, to justify any not outrage coming towards this way or towards Gino Damari. Because again, really, Damari sort of stepped out, on a limb for Rosario because the production hasn't necessarily been there to back him up. But again, could be the Achilles heel for the Canes coming into this tournament. They don't have that solid back end reliable guy. We'll see if he can find his stuff late here in the year.
And I do think there were some moments in that last start, with his fastball working both sides of the plate. I thought he did well with his changeup at times. He touched on his slider. So we will see. Rosario's got to look at learning experience, 0-0 with a 0 ERA. That's the way he's got to look at it right now because it's postseason play. We'll see how he does. You touched on the bats. I want to get into Miami's lineup. You touched on it, the final game there, the put up the 16 runs, 6 home runs, a season high, most in a game since 2019, coming after the shutout. The lineup, there's some big guys in this lineup that have produced all year. OPS is over 900, some over 1,000. What do you think needs to happen with this lineup? What do you think of this lineup going into ACC player?
Well, I do think, they've been solid all year. Guys like Yoanny Morales and stuff that are going to be solid there. It is a bit concerning, again, as I mentioned, that the offense kind of strutted down the stretch there. They looked awfully flat against Florida Gulf Coast. And then at Florida State, they left guys in scoring position. I do think, there were a lot of times later on in the year, the Hurricanes didn't take advantage, didn't, hit around as many as they could. And I also think that I've heard this theory thrown around a little bit that, this Hurricanes team is very young. There's a lot of freshmen, sophomores on the roster. Some people think that maybe they ran out of gas a little bit coming down the stretch. And perhaps now and maybe Sunday was just the spark that they needed to get back going. But they'll have to try and move the line. A lot of the, the runs, even on Sunday, have come off, just power and driving the ball out of the ballpark. I think they had 6 home runs on Sunday, was the season record, for 2022. And it was one of the all-time performances for Hurricanes offense in terms of pop. But you do kind of look at that with potential concern only from the standpoint that, again, they hadn't had a lot of runs. And then one player manufactured the one time they had, above 6 or 1 run in the series against Notre Dame, and they didn't score any on Saturday. So the offense will need to show that that game on Sunday really mattered and that they continue that momentum. Because, again, there's a lot of games to back it at the end of the season that didn't go well. So I do think, some guys are going to have to step up. I mean, lucky the Hurricanes have had spots in the back of their lineup, such as Zach Levinson, for example, has kind of stepped out of nowhere and emerged as a power bat later on in the season. Gino mentioned that he's going to get more time. And with that more time at the plate, more plate appearances, he's really stepped up and been one of the leaders in the Hurricane offense. And really, if they can get any surprises like Gabby Gutierrez, who seems to step up in the clutch all the time. He had the 2 home runs, but also I remember I called a game back in late March where we're sitting there thinking, man, this game might be over. And the Hurricanes were just so flat on offense. They got a runner at second, and Gabby stepped in with he's 1 for 11 or something on the season. Just hadn't been a ton of appearances. It didn't really look like this was going to be a surefire hit, and let alone he hits a single, into right or whatever to come around and tie the game. Canes eventually went on to win that one. And without his 2 home runs on Thursday, it was, the Canes wouldn't have won that game. So maybe a surprise player or batter too can also help spark the offense like that. But it's going to be interesting to watch. The Canes have the talent. They showed at the higher ends of the season, such as in the sweep of Virginia, they can do that. They're going to have to get back to moving the line and hitting a lot of line drives.
And I think the key is too, and we saw a little bit of that against Notre Dame where it didn't look good through that first game. Everyone threw out the first order of the lineup. The first time through didn't get a hit. And then all of a sudden, the next time through, they pick up 4 hits. So I think that's going to be important for postseason play. If it's not looking good, particularly in one game, you've got to battle through it. You're not always going to head and get blowout wins or anything like that. So, and certainly these teams with Wake Forest and NC State, both of these teams fighting to get into the NCAA tournament. Both are projected in, but certainly, they need to be on a better spot, make sure they're definitely in. So I think that they'll certainly want to get wins there. All ACC awards came out. Palmquist and Walters were first team selections. Second team guys were a trio of bats, with Jacob Berg, CJ Kafis, and Yo-Yo Morales. Morales is a guy that I'm very interested in seeing how he does, because he's not been hitting the ball well lately, striking out a little bit, but on the year, 32 extra base hits, certainly a guy that can really make this lineup go. And I feel like he is going to be key for Miami here in the ACC tournament.
Yeah, he will be. Another guy that just kind of needs to step back up for the Hurricanes. And part of the reason that they've, scored less on these back end games, I think some of their guys have maybe just come back down to earth a little bit on that, later end of the season. But the Hurricanes still finished the 8th best offense statistically in the ACC. They also 7th in homers, 8th in slugging percentage. So you kind of look at that, and honestly, it should be good enough to advance decently far as long as the pitching staff can come back to where they have. And they've really shown that, they can. I mean, they didn't allow Notre Dame to get any ridiculously concerning amount of runs. They also had some solid starts. So, and you have, again, your Palmquist and then Ligon set to go in whatever first 2 games that they'll have. So that's where the Hurricanes, I do think the concern with the offense is going to be if, they have a bad day or give up some runs, are they going to be able to counter and get back to their ways where they can score double-digit runs? I mean, they started the season doing so against Towson. There's 4 straight games. But they just really got off to a hot start offensively. You also had, again, as you mentioned, Romero and Morales, guys like that, seemingly getting extra base hits every time they step up. But they'll have to be able to move the line like that against these really good teams. I mean, Wake Forest, is a guy that Gino, I know, mentioned being named the pitcher of the year. And we're talking about their second best offense in the ACC. So that's a team you're going to have to face. We'll see how they play their cards. But Rhett Lauder could be a guy you face, in the game on Friday. And that could be really tough sledding for the Hurricanes. Because Lauder finished with a 2.45 ERA, also had only 19 walks and 94 strikeouts. So another really effective pitcher for the Hurricanes last time. I know the Canes did get to, again, they faced the best ACC guy in ERA actually not long ago. That was on Thursday against Notre Dame when Bertrand stepped in for, the Irish there. The Canes were able to scratch 6 runs, but again, 5 of those RBIs came from Gutierrez. So we'll see how their lineup responds to this tougher pitching. It's going to get it's going to get tight. The games are going to get very close, but we'll see how they respond.
That was great, Patrick. Definitely appreciate you jumping on here, and definitely curious to see how all this thing plays out. But appreciate your time, man. Take care.
You too.
All right, I'm excited to bring on my next guest to the show. It's Les Johns, Demon Deacon Digest, covers Wake Forest in the 24/7 network. What's going on, Les?
Hey, Christopher. Just thrilled to be on. Thanks for having me. Glad to see, as always, a good friend and a good, I guess, peer in the 24/7 Sports Network. Happy to be on with you.
Yeah, you're a regular. You're a regular here on the show, and I had to have you on here because I find Wake Forest to be an interesting team. Looking ahead here, Miami ACC tournament plays Wake Forest and NC State in pool play. Let's just talk about how Wake Forest has been playing of late. You talk about momentum late in the year. What do you make of them? They've won the last 4 ACC games. Only one other ACC team has a hotter streak to end the stretch, a hotter winning stretch. Your thoughts on Wake Forest here going to the tournament?
Well, they entered the weekend coming off that weird series split with Louisville. Actually, 2 weeks ago, they had the series split at home against Louisville. And then they only got one win at UNC. That was the getaway game in Chapel Hill. And they went into to Raleigh this weekend kind of on the outside the bubble, according to the experts. The D1 baseball had Wake Forest as the 65th team in a 64-team field this time last week. And their backs were kind of against the wall. They went out and swept the series at NC State. And I would argue that by Saturday afternoon's game that it was probably NC State who was probably feeling the need to grab a win. They're still in, but they're holding on like a hair on a biscuit, so it's going to be, the Wolfpack are probably in a position where they need to win a game or two in Charlotte. So it's kind of role reversal as the weekend went on. And Wake kind of did it in all phases of baseball over the weekend. They hit the ball well, they fielded well, and they had phenomenal pitching. I would argue it's the best series of 3 starts against an ACC foe that I've seen in my 8 years covering Wake Forest baseball. So there's a lot to be excited about, a lot of momentum, as you said. And, it's the way this tournament format goes. The Deacs are a team that have to win both Tuesday against NC State and then against Friday against you folks' Miami team to be able to move on to the semifinals on Saturday. And they're a team that's capable of doing that.
It's certainly interesting. And again, you touched on kind of going outside the tournament. Now they're the latest projections, they have them as a 2 seed in a regional. So a lot can change. A lot can change with games here. Let's talk about pitching. I think I find it very interesting. Every team's got interesting scenarios going into postseason play, whether it's conference tournaments or regional play. What are your thoughts on Wake Forest? How does this thing set up for them in terms of their rotation? Obviously, with Rhett getting pitcher of the year in the conference, a lot of eyes will be on him. But how does this kind of shake out in your eyes, with the pitching staff?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. And here's kind of how I look at things. It's like Wake, to advance in the tournament, needs to win both games, right? But now that they swept NC State and they're considered a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, the bigger tournament might be what they need to set themselves up for. In other words, Rhett pitched Thursday. I don't know that you really want to get him out of his normal rotation slot and bump him up to Tuesday to pitch against the Wolfpack. So I really would expect Wake to throw their midweek guy, Seth Keener, and then kind of patchwork things from there. Keener's not going to go typically 7 or 8 innings. He's probably going to give you at best 3 to 5 and then kind of backfill behind then. And you can kind of empty the bullpen and use your best guys if you need to get a win over the Pack, because they're going to have a couple days to rest in between. So, you can go Caminasi, you can go Crawford Wade, you can go Golub, you can go whoever you need to kind of fill in the back end and kind of patchwork it together. Not necessarily a Johnny Holstaff type of thing, but you can throw out your midweek guy and your best guys in the bullpen and get 9 innings. And then what that does is that sets up Rhett Louder probably for Friday. And then if they win, they'll be able to go to Josh Hartle on Saturday and Teddy McGraw on Sunday, should they get that far. And then it lays out perfectly going into NCAA tournament play. Their guys will kind of be in the right spot. So I don't expect them. I don't expect them to really jump ship and do anything different. I don't expect to see the top guys on the mound starting Tuesday.
And I think from a Miami standpoint, it's going to be very interesting what they decide to do. I think it becomes down to 2 guys, what they're going to do on at least on that first game against NC State, seeing how that plays out with Jake Garland, obviously their top pitcher, and Carson Palmquist. And, Coach Damari didn't want to hint at exactly what they were going to do, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go with Palmquist in that opener, the way they talked about it. It's kind of what you were just talking about in terms of the bigger picture. And Miami's trying to be that top 8 national seed. They're right on the fringe there. Kind of actually the latest prediction has them as 4, but certainly they could, slide in outside the top 8. There's not a lot of wiggle room there. So I think Miami doesn't want to go 0-2. Certainly they want to go 2-0 and win everything. But I think that they want to set it up as like, if they go 1-1, it is what it is. I think that they just don't want to go 0-2. That's just kind of how I see how it
Well,
might
think
play
about
out.
it too. Think about it too from Wake's perspective too, that if you do stub your toe and lose to NC State on Tuesday, there's still a lot to play for on Friday, because getting a top 10 win over Miami would be a huge, boost in the RPI. In other words, you probably would hold on to that 2 seed. You might not fall to a 3 seed if you fall to NC State, but then come back and beat Miami. You won't advance to the semifinals, but you get some work for Rhett Louder and keep him kind of on schedule, and you have a chance to grab a win over a top 5, top 10 team in Miami. I think there's a lot to be said for that. There's a lot of value there. People talk about those games being meaningless, but I don't think it really would be a meaningless game for Wake Forest.
No, and from Miami, the coach talked about they got to win games. They were kind of limping down the stretch here. They do take 2 of 3 against Notre Dame, but they're looking to get wins here. They've not been playing particularly well. They only won 2 of their last 5 ACC series. So this isn't a team that's just automatically clicking. And I think that they just want to worry about winning games. So regardless, so one of the things that works out too, teams just don't typically have 4 starters that they feel completely comfortable with, can give you 6 or 7 innings. That's just not how it works in college baseball. It'd be ideal. But I think most teams, by the time they get to either semifinals or finals, they're just trying to piece it together. And hopefully they get a guy in there, he can be hot. But I think the key is too, coaches have to be willing to pull a guy. If he doesn't have his stuff, they only give him a couple innings, then it's only a couple innings and just go to the next guy. But you mentioned another interesting thing to watch for is the amount of days in between games for Wake Forest to be able to reset the bullpen. I feel like from a Miami standpoint, they're able to kind of get the rotation because they don't go until Wednesday. So they're able to kind of set it. They do have some options there when they first start, and obviously getting a chance to see how it shakes out. The hitting, you touched on some things with Wake Forest. That's what stands out, obviously. The numbers that the guys have been putting up for the Demon Deacons this year. What stands out to you with them? And obviously they've got a couple left-handed kind of a mix of different guys that can produce.
What stands out to me most about Wake Forest is their balance. The fact that they can do it at the top of the lineup, they can do it at the bottom of the lineup, and of course the middle's deadly. They've got they hit for average, they hit for power. They do it both on the road and at home. People like to talk about Wake Forest having, kind of a bandbox, and that, it's a favorable field for power hitting. But Wake Forest hits a lot of home runs on the road. The Charlotte Knights, that ballpark plays well for hitters. So I think it's a ballpark that you're going to see some runs scored. Another thing that's probably underrated about Wake Forest is the amount of walks that they draw. If I remember correctly, it's a program record number of walks drawn. I'm trying to look at the number. 349 walks drawn this year, whereas our pitchers have only allowed 231. That's a huge discrepancy in free 90 feet, So Wake is patient. They get a lot of pitches thrown by the opposing pitchers, and they take what you give them. So there's a lot of things to this Wake Forest offense that works well.
Yeah, you touched on the walks there, and I'm quickly running the numbers. That's 6.2 walks per game. That seems very high, and certainly kind of conversely from Miami, they're 5.1. So that's a lot of walks. Obviously, you touched on being patient. So that'll be something to watch for. Hey, Les, NC State, let's touch on them just briefly. Obviously, with Tommy White, what he's been able to do, a lot of excitement, not just in the ACC, but nationally, freshman power hitter, slugging a bunch of home runs. Your thoughts, any initial thoughts or thoughts on NC State, kind of what makes them go when they're clicking?
It's a team that really can pound the ball as well, and Tommy White is an exciting player. He hit one out in game one, if I remember correctly, against the Deeks, and that's even after taking a pitch off his right wrist, and you could tell it dinged him pretty good. But he came back later on that game and knocked one out. They hit for a lot of power. They're an exciting ball club. I don't really honestly think I saw the best representation of NC State this weekend because I watched all three of those games fervently, but didn't see a ton of them prior to this weekend. And Wake kind of shut them down. I think they had 4 runs over the weekend, maybe 5. So I don't think I saw the best representation of NC State. I'm sure that's a motivated bunch and ready to get after the Deeks Tuesday afternoon. So I'm pretty sure we'll see the best version of the Wolfpack at 3:00 Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Tommy Tanks, 23 home runs as a freshman of the year in the ACC. Les, I want to thank you for joining me. It should be an exciting week there in Charlotte there.
Look forward to being there. If you need anything from me, feel free to reach out, Christopher.
All right, take care, man.
Thanks.
What's going on, everybody? Special guest here. It's Jake Kulikowski, a state champ, Miami commit. What's going on, Jake?
Nothing much. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I had a chance to watch your games there. Tampa Jesuit, 5'8" state champion. It's got to be an exciting time. What has it been like the last few days, since the championship?
It's hard to put into words. It's been a lot of fun and a lot of hard work and coming together as a team. And, the goal at the end of the day is to win a state championship, and we did it. So it's a lot of fun. Tough to explain the feeling.
Yeah, and I want to get into the state the state semifinals, Naples, and then obviously winning against O'Galley. But Dixie Hollins, I know you guys were running through things in the state tournament, but you hit a couple homers. And what was that like to have that performance and knowing you guys are going to Fort Myers there?
Yeah, I mean, those are all actually pretty good teams. They had good seasons, threw pretty good arms. We were battle tested throughout the year. We faced a lot of really good guys. So we felt good going into it, and then just got really hot at the right time. Felt like I was swinging the bat really well. And it's just it was a lot of fun.
You touched on getting hot. There's a point, I think you guys were 15-8. You won your final 9 games. What kind of was the turning point for you guys to kind of get on this hot streak and to win the rest there after about the midway point or so?
So we had a lot of new guys this year, a lot of seniors last year. I think 15 maybe, somewhere around there, that all graduated, and a lot of them played. So we had a lot of young guys, new guys. I think part of it was just kind of getting to know each other as a team and kind of like bonding. And I think that just over the course of the season, we grew closer and like started to play more as a team, and then just kept getting better with each other. And then, like I said before, we were battle tested. We faced a lot of really good players, a lot of good pitching. So I think part of it was just a lot of close games that could have went either way. And it was really good for us too, to see that going into the postseason, I think, to be in those situations so that it wasn't the first time we're in a big spot.
So you're in a big spot against Naples, state semifinal game. The first inning, you guys jump out there, score 4 runs, but it was your RBI double that kind of got it started. That was the first run there. It was a great hit. It's probably, I assume it's probably what you feel like when you're doing things right. Those are the kind of hits you get. Can you talk about that double there, the way you're able to square one up there and kind of pull it to right field?
Yeah, so our first 2 guys both got on. Then I was hitting third. And early in the count, just got a good pitch to hit. And that's like kind of just want to do damage early in the count and not get behind. And it was just a good pitch to hit, fastball. I got the bat to it. It was like a low and in pitch and line drive. And that's a deep ballpark. I mean, it was a big league ballpark. It's probably gone at most of the fields we play at. But just squared it up and hit off the wall. And it was exciting early in the game. It kind of got all the energy coming our way to lead the game off. So,
yeah, and you get to second with a nice little flex there. Had to feel good. You guys put up 4. What's the mentality? You know, obviously, you'd rather be 4 up than 4 down, but to complete it, you guys win 5-2. But the rest of the game, what was kind of the importance for you guys to go ahead and to win it?
So we did let them hang around more than we wanted to, but that was kind of we wanted to treat every inning almost like a new game and win every inning. So we scored a lot of balls up even later in the game that just didn't go our way. Like they made nice plays or line drives at people. Then they brought in a lefty who kind of like slowed us down a little bit. But I think it's just treating every inning as its own thing, or winning every pitch, and not just taking it easy because we took a 4-0 lead in that first, but still trying not to back down and keep playing every inning like it's a new inning or a new game almost.
So you get the 6-0 win in a state title game. Wes was certainly on top of his game. It felt like, 6 runs certainly good, but it felt like he didn't need too many when he was pitching the way he was. What'd you kind of think of his performance? And then obviously, what was it kind of like as the game's going on and you're getting closer to wrapping the thing up there?
Yeah, it's easy when our pitchers, our whole pitching staff's thrown like that. But Wes had a great game. It would have been cool if we got to finish it out. It's just reached the pitch limit. But he's been really good for us all year. He's got great stuff, and he's like a bulldog on the mound. Like it's like all of our guys are, and it's easy to kind of rally behind that. And it takes a little bit of pressure off us as hitters. We don't have to try to do too much, and we could go up there comfortable. And then back to the other question about how it felt like getting towards the end of that game. Like that last inning, I was running out there, and it's like that was when it really hit me that we're like 3 outs away, and like I almost like felt like not even butterflies, but like my legs are just like I couldn't even almost feel my body. Like it was a cool feeling. And then once we got that 3rd out and had the dog pile, it was awesome.
Look, I didn't play sports at the level you did, but just big wins. You kind of remember either what the congratulations were like or the dog pile you mentioned. You kind of remember who you first went up to. Do you remember exactly what you did? And when you guys sealed the win, was there a guy that you went up to or anything like that?
So it was hit to center. So I naturally just started moving towards center field once the ball was hit. And then right after that, it was kind of just like full out sprint into the dog pile and jumped on the top. I was in the outfield, so I was one of the later people in it. But then I don't think there was one particular guy that I went up to first. It was just whoever was closest to me. Like gave a bunch of the guys hugs, and I've been playing with them for a while. One kid, AJ Nessler, is kind of like probably one of my closer friends on the team. He hits leadoff for us, was playing first base, and he's going to Pitt. And he lives by me too, so I've grown up with him and had a close relationship with him. And I remember giving him a hug, and like it was pretty emotional because that might be our last time playing with each other. Now he is going to be in the ACC, so we'll get to play against him. But it was pretty emotional and I just remember that particularly was like a special moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I did want to mention class of 2023. So this was your junior year. Was there something in particular, kind of looking back, that you felt pretty pleased with your development, your improvement from the year prior? Was there something, a part of your game where you felt like you improved on this past season?
Yeah, I mean, I would say particularly, even maybe not baseball wise, but as a leader and a captain. Like last year, I was like, me and Wes were the two young guys. We're the only sophomores on the team. And even though we had a big role and there were like older guys who have been in the program, so we kind of got to learn a lot from them. And then this year was like really my first year to be a part of, I was a captain and be a part of like leading the team. So I think that I got to learn a lot in that way, as like how to lead a team and how to get the guys going and everything. So I would say, as far as like my development, that was probably the biggest area. And then back to what I said earlier, we got to face a lot of really good pitchers. I think maybe 5 or 6 guys who were like up to 95 or higher this year. So, and then outside of that, we faced a ton of guys who were going D1 schools or like over 90 miles an hour. So I think it was really good for me to get to see those arms and experience it. And then a couple first rounders we'll get to see too. So it was pretty cool and a lot of fun to play against those guys and compete against the best.
Sure. And that's only going to make you better and also kind of let you know what you got to get to, what level you've got to get to keep kind of working in your development. Your verbal commitment to Miami, can you walk me through that? When did that happen? And essentially, what was it about Miami that kind of led you to that program?
Yeah, so it was my summer going into 8th grade year that I was at a showcase. I think it was after I was hitting VP and like we went through the workout and everything. I think Coach Damari was there and he saw me. So later on, they reached out to my high school coach, Coach Menendez, who's also, he wanted me to say this too, he's also a big Miami fan. He just wanted me to let everyone know. But he let me know that they wanted to speak with me. So after that, we started talking. I talked to Coach Lopez for a couple months and ended up going down to a camp, I believe, early September. And after that camp, like the Monday after the camp, they called and offered me. And then I think it took me about 2 or 3 weeks to decide. And then I committed. And to your question about what it was about Miami, really it's everything that I'm looking for in a school. It's like great, not only baseball program, historic, but lots of success. And I feel like it's a place where I'll really be able to develop and become the best player I can be. But I had a great relationship with all the coaches, which was really important to me too. It was like I wanted to go somewhere where it was like a family, and I really felt that way. And then outside of baseball, I love the school. It's a great academic institute, and I really take pride in my academics, and like that's something that was really important to me. So that was a big factor in my decision. And then once I got on campus, it just felt like the right fit. Like I don't know, that there's not really any way to put it besides it just felt like it was like the perfect place for me. I loved the campus, just like the atmosphere and everything is just like seemed like the perfect fit for me.
And certainly you've been busy with your own season, but how much have you paid attention to Miami? Have you been able to get down to Coral Gables for a game this past year? Obviously, they're getting ready to get going in postseason play. Your thoughts on them looking forward to the postseason and what they could possibly do?
I've not got to get down there to watch a game. We wanted to, but it was just like the conflict with our season was tough. But I have been watching almost any free chance I get. I turn the game on, and it's a lot of fun. They've been hitting the ball like crazy and like raking. So it's been a lot of fun for me as an offensive guy. That's what I pay attention to most. And it's been a lot of fun. I mean, having a really good year and some big wins. So I'll be definitely watching every game.
Jake, you got any favorite major league players that you enjoy watching? Anyone you either try to pattern your game after a little bit or just anybody you like to watch?
One guy who's really fun for me to watch in Miami, I know he's not an outfielder, but Jazz Chisholm. The energy he brings to the game is fun to me. And then other guys, like I really like Ken Griffey Jr. a lot. I know he doesn't play anymore, but he's someone that's just like, for me, like fun to see his highlights and everything. And he's like, just guys like that, entertaining guys who go about the game and have fun playing is like, important to me because at the end of the day, it is a game, and it's not supposed to be like, it's not really a job. It's like a game. It's supposed to be fun. So
is that where the 24 comes from?
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, what's just kind of lastly wrapping it up here? What's the summer look for you? What's kind of your outlook, the things you'll be up to, your schedule, the whole thing. What are you looking to do this summer?
It'll be really busy. We'll have like training. So I'm playing with the Scorpions, and it's like a giant scout team too. And we start training this weekend, and then we have it next week. And then after that, we go start tournaments. So it'll be busy playing almost every day this summer, like a couple days here and there, maybe for travel or maybe be back a couple days, but that's really it. Most part, just playing and then trying to find time to work out in the hotels or maybe a local crunch or a gym. So it'll be really busy, but I'm excited. And last summer I played up a year. So basically the same, I played 17U last year too. And that was kind of just to prepare me for all the, like the hectic schedule and everything, to be ready and have experienced it once before was my summer. So.
Well, good. Yeah. It sounds certainly like you'll be busy. Look forward to continuing following you. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, Jake, kind of going through your journey. Congrats again on the state championship. We'll talk soon, but take care, man.
Thank you. Thanks again for having me.